starting this video at my own risk. The weather is so nice. I can only assume that there's people out wandering around, and I hate vlogging when there's people close by. It's part of my introversion. Anyway, it's a beautiful day. It's a particular day. It's an April 28th day. April 28th, 2021. That guy on that bicycle was giving me a bit of a glare, and I don't blame him. Anyway, you know the deal. It's a new day, a new video. But before we get to that, remember, as always, I'm a smaller YouTuber, putting out a lot of content, still trying to grow. Not expeditiously, astronomically. I don't know what word I'm looking for. Anyway, if you want to help me doing that, remember, like my stuff, share, subscribe to my channel. I have a Patreon page. You can help me out there. I'm posting stuff there fairly regularly as a penance for you helping me out. The link to that is in the description of this video, as well as the links to my Facebook and Instagram pages. Closely related, I'm trying to talk too fast these days. Closely related to the content I'm posting both on my This Day in History channel, as well as my primary channel, Steve, the Amateur Store, and you can watch this vlog series on either channel. And this house was not here last time I walked through here. Those construction guys work fast. Let me tell you a story about two young people that also worked very fast. So nowadays, it's you know, you still have people that marry fairly young. You know, you have a couple of people that marry around 17, 18 years of age, but it's not super common. And of course, with the way laws are, when you've got people that are under the age of 18, certain conditions apply. But back in the day, I mean, especially when, you know, nobody was really watching out for anybody, and it was extremely common. It was common for full-grown adult, you know, usually men, to marry, you know, teenage girls. This was especially, you know, the more rural you got. There was, you know, men in their 30s and 40s and so on would marry 12, 13, 14-year-old girls, and it was almost accepted. You know, it's another time people think differently, and I'm sure some people were bothered by it, but not as many as you might think. Now, this story doesn't go down that road, but it goes down the road of, here we have a young couple that was married. We have Lucille and Homer Ross, who in 1921 were both 16, and had already been married for at least a little while, living in Portland. But apparently Homer was a bit of a ruffian, if that's the proper word to use to describe him, and he'd gotten into a little bit of legal trouble. He'd gotten thrown in put into like a juvenile facility for a very brief time. But obviously he was a little bit of a, let's just say, people in Lucille's family probably didn't love the fact that this guy was married to their daughter. They were the same age, and, you know, they met under whatever circumstances they did, and they became wedded. And apparently by this time, again, you know, by late April 1921, according to Lucille's mom, they had broken it off. Obviously, his kind of wild lifestyle that landed him in a juvenile facility, you know, didn't settle real well with her. We got a dog over here. Oh, we got a wild dog. I only point that out because it always happens in these videos. Do you hear that? That wild animal. Homer Ross was kind of a wild animal, so it sinks. Anyway, so by all accounts, they had split. However, Homer gets out of the juvenile clink, whatever you want to call it, and within a couple of days, suddenly both he and Lucille vanish. So one implication is that he got out, he immediately went to her, he tried to smooth over whatever issues they were having, and she said, okay, fine, and they took off together. Where they went, you know, who knows? And I noticed a lot of articles popped up in relation to this story. So as far as stories based out of Portland at that particular time, this was a big story that was being reported on, and I think they were ultimately found, even though the particular article I was looking at was published more during this time where it wasn't known. It was a mystery what happened to this couple, because Lucille's family was of the opinion that he had gotten out of, again, the juvenile clink. He turned it's like from a motorcycle, he turned into a mailbox. Okay. Sorry, there's distractions everywhere today. And he obviously must have gotten out and forcibly made Lucille leave with him, because Lucille's family was holding firm with their story that she was done with this guy, and if she went anywhere with him, it was because he forced her to. And that's really where this article picked up, was Lucille's family reported her missing from her home on 8th Street. And again, this is a story that predates 1930, so the address given for where she lived would not be the same address that is there today. And if I can find an image of it, because the last time I tried to do this, I found out that that stretch of road, like, I don't even know if it really, I think they got the address wrong, because according to my documentation, the address didn't exist. So hopefully the address given in this article does exist, so I can say that this right here is an image of the location where Lucille Ross was living with her family. Now, I don't know if her and Homer were living together after they got married, and that, you know, when she broke it off with him, she went back home, or if maybe they were just still living separate. I mean, you know, again, back in the day, 16 years old back then was like 20 years old now. So, you know, a lot of people were, you know, working and doing their thing. And so that was the big thing, was there was this big mystery. And again, it was a big deal in Portland. What happened to the bride and the groom? They had just vanished. And at this moment, I don't know how close their residence, the two residents Lucille and Homer were living at during this time, how close they were together. But while she was living on 8th Avenue, Homer at the time was living in the Noreen Apartments, which may still stand today, along Grand Avenue. And while these two young lovers were technically missing, after Lucille had perceivably vanished from her home, just everybody in the home apparently looked up one moment and she was just gone, she did call home, at which time she told her mother that she was with Homer. But as the information I saw stated, the mom couldn't really gain any further information about what was going on, except that she was with Homer. You know, she couldn't figure out whether she had been forcibly taken by him. She wouldn't say where they were, or, you know, any of the real circumstances, just that she was with Homer. And I get the feeling that the reason she probably held back a lot of details wasn't so much that, like, you know, maybe Homer was standing there with a gun to her head, you know. I have a feeling it was more like, you know, she'd gone through this big hullabaloo. You know, she got married to this guy, and she was in the process of trying to divorce him. The one thing that was holding it up was they actually needed someone to, like, represent Homer as a guardian, which is interesting. You know, they're old enough to get married. Sorry, wasp just flew by. They're old enough to get married, but they're too young to get divorced, is kind of what it seems like. So I don't know what the circumstances were surrounding that, but so she was going through that process. She was trying to get a divorce to happen, all of this stuff. And so, you know, she'd probably had a lot of conversations with her family, like, he's a jerk, he's a scumbag, and I'm done with him, and I'm done with him. But now here's what makes things really interesting. Because you think, okay, she was already at that point before Homer got busted for delinquency. And, you know, I think she was just embarrassed. I think, you know, because she knew what she was doing. She was, you know, she'd been saying, I'm going to divorce him, it's going to happen. And then she runs off with him again. It's like, yeah, I'm back with Homer, you know. It's embarrassing. You don't want to talk about it with anybody. And I kind of get that. And I feel like that's more why she didn't really give a lot of extra information. It was just like, I'm off with Homer. And again, they were ultimately found. She didn't end up being found dead in a ditch somewhere or something creepy like that. But here's the thing. Here's the twist, is the reason that Homer was busted. He was busted for, it's like juvenile vagrancy, I think was the way they described it. But here was the deal. Okay, here's Homer, who, you know, apparently was a bit of a deadbeat husband. His young wife was ready to break up with him, you know, real quick. And then, you know, days later, he hooks up with her again and runs off with her. So you're like, okay, well, maybe he realized he was being kind of a jerk and he wanted to finally make amends for being kind of a crappy husband. Well, the reason he got busted was he was caught with another woman. He was chasing after a 17-year-old also married woman named Velma Ford. So yeah, he was going after older women is what it sounds like. Yeah, so he was caught, I guess, in her company, which of course in the verbiage of the time means a lot more than what the simple words may indicate. He was a married man, kind of in the early stages of getting divorced, but still married. And he was caught with a woman who was also, Velma Ford was also reported, ooh, a mutt. Velma, don't you make your horse noises at me. Velma Ford was also in the process of getting a divorce. She wasn't quite divorced yet. So they were two married people, enjoying one another's company, as you would say. So that's what he got busted for, and that's what he got, and you'd think, why in God's name would Lucille go anywhere? She already is done with this guy, and it's not like he ended up in a juvenile facility because he broke into a store and stole some flowers to give to her or something kind of twistedly trying to be romantic like that. But he got busted for hooking up with another woman. So it's unfortunate, you know. Maybe Lucille suffered quite a bit of denial over what was going on. Maybe she didn't have the greatest self-confidence, you know. In the this is, you know, leading into kind of the 20s where like flappers became a big thing, and you know, you started seeing a boost in the, you know, self-confidence that women were having, and that they were, you know, good for more than just, you know, what society, which was men, said they were good for. But you know, a lot of women were pretty much told, like, you know, all women are good for is being born, trying to look pretty, and making a good wife. And so, you know, maybe Lucille struggled with some self-confidence issues and just felt like this was, you know, the best it was going to be. It was just her with this guy. You know, obviously none of us can get inside her mind. I lean kind of towards the idea that she was probably in a bit of denial, and this Homer was probably kind of a smooth talker. So I don't know, maybe he managed to say all the right things at the right moment and convinced Lucille to go off with him. You know, I don't know, maybe that was his grand gesture, is he got out of his, you know, lockup and he was like, hey, let's start fresh, you and me, let's split town together, we're just gonna go. Which is, you know, nice and all, but when you do that, bad things can happen. Like the parents of the girl in question might freak out and call the police and say, our daughter's been abducted. Even if they know she's with her husband, they can still say, yeah, he probably stole her. He probably abducted her. So it's not the greatest of all plans, if that's what he was doing. And, you know, they were ultimately, you know, again, found a couple days later. So there was a resolution to the story, but I thought this was just really interesting. Nothing really wild and crazy and bombastic, nothing that makes you fall out of your chair laughing, nothing that makes you, you know, clutch your pearls in shock, but, you know, it addresses the notion of, you know, how much more common younger people getting married was, and kind of some of the stigmas to that. But then there was also just this interesting story on top of it, and the fact that, like, for a couple of days in 1921, the biggest story going around the city of Portland at the end of April was this, you know, this marriage between these two 16-year-olds that had kind of crumbled apart, and then next thing you know, they're suddenly both gone. And at the time, before they were found, you know, you had to wonder, are we ever going to find them? Are they going to just disappear? Are they going to, you know, move all the way across the country to the East Coast and we'll just never find them? Are they going to start identifying themselves with new names? Like, what if they're gone forever and we never find them, and we don't know if they just started a new life somewhere or if they met a tragic end? So I just thought it was just a very interesting setup that kind of gets at the core of a certain element of the time, which is really young marriage that isn't really all that common anymore. I mean, give or take whatever location you're in. So that is today's story for April 28th. I hope you enjoyed it. It's just a, you know, quirky little bizarre story with an end. I mean, they were found and brought back. Something tells me, I don't know. I don't get the vibes that their marriage lasted much longer, especially as they grew older, and hopefully Lucille kind of, you know, learned a little more about the world and a little bit more about herself and how she really truly felt, because this guy sounds like he was a scumbag. So I'm hoping she finally ultimately made her way off and found her own life, or, you know, found a better mate. I hope so, at least. But anyway, that is it. I'd like to thank you so much, as always, for watching today's episode and supporting this series, supporting this channel. Other ways you can support me are, you know, remember to like, share, subscribe, hit up my Patreon. I'm always posting new stuff there to thank you for helping me out. The link to my Patreon is in the description with this video, along with the links to my Instagram and Facebook pages, closely related to the content I'm producing both on my This Day in History channel as well as my Steve the Amateur Historian channel. You can watch these videos on either channel. And all that said, this has been Steve, and I'll see you tomorrow.